Well, welcome back. Bombshell claims against Twitter this week. Whistleblower Peter Zatko is set to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee next month after he said massive security violations are happening at Twitter. The former executive says Twitter is jeopardizing national security and misleading investors. Twitter CEO Parag Agrawal calling the claims, quote, foundationally, technically, and historically inaccurate, unquote. Joining me right now is cybersecurity expert Lisa Garber and disruptive tech research founder and chief analyst Lou Bassanese. Great to see you both. Thank you so much for being here. Lisa, I want to kick it off with you. We don't have the specific details in terms of where the national security flaws are, but what is the vulnerability of a company like Twitter in terms of its impact on national security?
Great to see you, Maria. If we contextualize this whistleblower report with both who it's coming from, Peter Zatko is highly respected in the cybersecurity and hacker community. He's been in the community for decades. He was with Twitter for quite a few years. And then we contextualize Twitter itself, which is one of the world's leading social media platforms and where many people get their daily information and check facts and things like that. This is problematic because we see major violations of best practices in cybersecurity. We see lack of encryption. We see the principle of least privilege being violated, meaning it looks like he's alleging half of Twitter's employees have access to detailed information about users, including obviously national figureheads, celebrities. And we saw problems with Twitter's operations in the past, just in 2020, where a few teenagers gained access to high-profile Twitter accounts. So these allegations in the report are explosive and significantly against cybersecurity best practices.
Well, I think you laid it out well, especially since, Lou, we know that this is not exactly an independent group. They are against Republicans. They are against conservatives. They continue to censor them off of the platform, and they censored real information right before the 2020 election in the form of Hunter Biden's laptop. What does this mean for the company's prospects? And I guess I should also point out that this is another layer on top of the Elon Musk fight, where Elon Musk is saying you're not being honest about the number of fake accounts on the platform. Give us your standpoint from an investment standpoint.
Yeah, I think there's so many risks here to unpack that I would avoid it, right? Twitter was an investment to buy the rumor of Musk taking them over and then sell that news. That hit on a Thursday, Friday. You should have sold on Monday when the takeover came out. And look, this is news to Twitter about the cybersecurity and privacy risks, but it's not news to the social media space. I mean, Facebook has been just a perennial offender of privacy laws and just underinvestment in cybersecurity protection. So it shouldn't be shocking to investors. It's a real risk that pervades any of the digital economy names. I think you have to avoid Twitter. I think Musk is right. If you look, there's a tremendous amount of fake accounts. Even if we look at Facebook as a proxy, last quarter, they had to fight off 1.6 billion fake accounts they had to delete and remove from their system. So arguing that 50 to 60, 70+% of Twitter's users could be fake is not unreasonable. It sounds bombastic in the headlines, but I think as an investor, you have to take that very seriously, that the majority of those 290 million plus users or so, just under 300 million, might not be real. The engagement's low. From an investment standpoint, social media is a saturated marketplace. It's tough to be competitive. You're going into a recession, if not in one, where these rely on advertising. So I can't think of one positive, honestly. Elon Musk would be the only positive. So I would wait for him to take over Twitter at a lower price before I'd even consider coming in here as an investor.
So you think that's where this is going? Elon Musk still acquires the company, but at a lower price than Lou?
I do think that happens. I mean, look, they got close enough to a deal and an agreement that the executive ranks got gutted inside Twitter. So Twitter really has to, they really don't have much of a choice to go it alone anymore. I think they're going to have to come to terms with a lower price. They're going to have to be more forthright with their disclosures and transparencies. And then Elon Musk is a private company. I mean, even Jack Dorsey said it. Twitter can run more effectively as a private company. I think you can correct these issues on cybersecurity, privacy, try and reinvigorate growth with someone at the helm that isn't so biased in terms of separating the audiences and censoring content.
And the bias is probably one of the biggest stories here, Lisa, because you've got politics all wrapped up in a situation that makes the company vulnerable and its users vulnerable because of all of that data that political hacks have their hands on.
It's extremely troubling. In addition to the release of this, we only see the redacted report, the lack of encryption, lack of principle of least privilege. We see issues with employees being able to touch different data points. Obviously, there's not enough training being done. We still have, despite how many bots or spam persons may be on the site itself, we still have high-profile users that are leaving plenty of their personal information on the platform. They have DMs. They have the ability to interact. If we see teenagers getting into it like they did in 2020, who knows what could happen if Putin did or anybody else. And then we have questions of what's actually in the inner workings. So we need a better audit. We need to understand the inner workings. We also have a problem with 30-year-old laws highlighting how these platforms are able to function, right? And that's a problem, as we've said, with Facebook, with Twitter, with Google, all of these platforms. We really need to take a closer look at how they operate because they are private.
Yeah, and who's actually making the rules? This week, Facebook told us that it was actually the FBI that directed the company to censor the Hunter Biden laptop story, and they're the ones who told Meta that it was Russian disinformation. So who's really running the show? Is it this administration or these companies? Lou Bassanese, Lisa Garber, great discussion. We so appreciate your time this weekend. Thank you.